Alright, hello, Retrothon. I'm Anatoliu. I'm going to be helping on commentary for this run that Crimson is doing of Tenkaichi, Bushi, Keru, Naguuru, which translates to something like the greatest warrior on earth, kick and punch. So this is going to be a treat. Just to very quickly introduce the game, and then I'll give Crimson a little countdown here. This is a 1989 Famicom game, so never released outside of Japan. It's pretty special. It's kind of cool. I'll talk about kind of what it is as Crimson gets into it, but this is a 1989 Famicom game. It was made by Masanobu Endo, who was the creator of Tower of Drauga and Xevious, which is a sentence I can only say on Retro Gaming Live TV and hope that anyone will know what I'm talking about. But this is cool. It's a very different, interesting kind of game, and we'll kind of talk through what's going on as we get into it. But yeah, why don't we go ahead and I'll count Crimson down, and we'll go ahead and get started. Crimson, ready. 3, 2, 1, go. Let's see if that worked. I have a little delay here, but I think we're going. Great. So, you saw that Crimson kind of went down to a different mode in the main menu there, and that's because this is actually mainly a fighting game. This game was kind of billed as a, one-on-one fighting game very early, and it's kind of interesting because it's a little bit of a kind of progenitor for games like Street Fighter. You've got, A and B, you've got directional pads, and you've got to do all of these moves with just that. It's pretty cool. There are a lot of techniques. Some of them are based off your distance from your opponent. Then there's kind of a lot of combinations of buttons that allow you to do techniques. This mode that we're in here, though, is the training, or the story mode. I think today you would call it a story mode, but in this game it's called training mode. And essentially the idea is you're going from a warrior that is, very weak. You can see in these battles that Crimson is getting into, we've only got 10 HP, and you're becoming very powerful. There are two main speedrun categories for this game. We have the one that Crimson is running here called All the Castles. In this one, we go through essentially increasing the fighter rank by defeating the warriors who are protecting 7 different castles in this area. After the last one, we'll be able to get a password, which allows us to essentially initiate the credits. It's a little bit like Gauntlet, which Yellsrick is going to be running later tonight, where you can have a password that you kind of know in advance that allows you to complete the game. And so we already know what the password's going to be here, but this category is going through all those and then getting the password and then putting it in. Here we have the initial fights here. I'll introduce a little bit what's actually going on, but right here, fighting this guy, well, yeah, I'll come back to that in a second. The other speedrun category is quite a bit longer than this, so this is going to take Crimson about 15 to 20 minutes. The other one is to fight the Grandmaster, and that's quite a bit longer, mainly because in order to fight the Grandmaster, who's kind of like the final boss, you have to max out, you have to basically do all of the things here in the training mode to progress your fighter up, and then you also need to get to 999 max HP. You can gain some HP by using items, but for the most part you just get it from certain random encounters. So that category involves a lot of grinding on some of these random encounters that Crimson has mainly been trying to avoid. You saw that, you know, sometimes he gets in these random encounters and he'll actually just instantly end the fight. It's kind of like a death warp, essentially. So if you see him getting into some fight and then his character, who's the one wearing the gray uniform here, just kind of immediately keels over, that's because Crimson has gone ahead and just taken a death warp, which will take you back to your mom's house, which is where you start the game. It's actually really funny. If you start training mode, it's essentially like Crimson skipped right past it, but there's a little bit of text from your mom, and she says, you know, you can become, you know, the greatest warrior on the planet. She's like giving you this like motivational pep talk, and then she gives you a little bit of money, and then she's like, go out in the world. So that's what we saw. So what's Crimson actually doing here? So with this, you know, we've got to defeat these 7 guardians of these 7 castles. There are a lot of power-ups you can do. I always love the horse stables here. There are a lot of power-ups you can get, but obviously for a speedrun, you want to basically be doing this with minimal power. Not spending too much time getting stronger. Just spending it, you know, what's the minimum we need to do to fight all of these opponents. And you're going to see, especially as we go into the later castles, that Crimson is going to look pretty underpowered compared with his opponents. And he's going to really be needing to do a lot of dodging. There will definitely be some fights coming up where he can only take a couple hits from his opponents, but he's got to hit them a bunch of times. So that's when you really kind of get into the technique and the gameplay. As Crimson's walking around here, all these text boxes that are popping up are random encounters. You can always immediately accept the fight if you want, but if you hit the B button, then you are able to essentially try to run away. It doesn't always work. And that one, yeah, there's a death warp right there. So that kind of explains what I was saying. Some of those random encounters are pretty helpful, though. You encounter different kinds of opponents depending on the terrain that you're on. And some of those opponents, the one you find in the grass, the trees, and the stairs, will actually upgrade some of your HP if you beat them. Whereas some of the other ones, they don't upgrade your HP. And as far as this run goes, there's nothing particularly helpful that we get from them. Alright, so here we are in the second castle. Kind of missed the first one. And what's funny about the castles is each one of them kind of has a trick. Not only do you have to defeat, you know, these guardians who are protecting each of the castles, but there's always something you have to do to essentially gain access to the castle. The first one is really easy because it's essentially you need to go there holding some money, and then you bribe the guard, and then they let you in. And they all kind of just have these different things. That second guy, in order to access the second castle there, we needed to bring them some Chinese food. There's a lot of kind of interesting humor in this game, which is a lot of the charm. It's actually like very sad that we didn't get a localization of this game, because I think it's actually really fun. This third castle here is one of the most like strange, obscure story triggers to be able to get to that one. So you have to go to one of the shops in one of the towns with some money, and the store owner at the shop will say, do you want a peach? And you have to say no. And then the shop owner goes, oh, well, do you want 2 peaches? And then you say yes. And then you take your 2 peaches, which is a different item, and you take those to the castle, and then you give those to the guard, and then they'll let you in. So, yeah, there you go. That's how you get into castle number 3. So we're about 3 out of 7 castles down at this point. Crimson is going to get a little bit stronger, but for the most part, he's really just kind of trying to get through them. So we've accessed castle number 4 right here. This is about the halfway point. You can see that if you look at kind of the disparity between Crimson and the other fighter there, 72 HP versus 396. We're really starting to fight opponents that are a lot more powerful than we are, in those castles in particular. And it's only going to get even more lopsided. There's a ton of stuff that Crimson's not doing here. So there's all kinds of things that you actually do to power up your character. There are 8 power levels, which you can increase by finding these items called Tau fruits. Crimson is getting some of those because those help him do more damage, so that tends to actually work out pretty well for the speedrun here, just getting at least some of those. There are also some seeds that you eat that increase your speed, and then there are 4 jump parameters. The jump ones are pretty interesting because it's not like an item, those are more like quests you have to do. So you kind of have your starting one. The second one, you find a pear tree, and you can't reach the pear in the pear tree, and basically you keep trying to jump high enough to get the pear, and eventually you get it. And when you've done that, you've upgraded your jump power. So that's the kind of thing that this game is full of. Because this game was coming out in Japan in 1989, this also has some Dragon Quest references. So there are some references specifically to Dragon Quest 2 and Dragon Quest 3. There's an event where you can find a small medal that was, I think the text is that small medal was lost in Dragon Quest 3. And apparently it made its way into this game. And then there's also it's the evil idol statue. In the West we know it as the Eye of Malroth from Dragon Warrior 2. That's also in this game, and there's an extremely cursed quest along with that. Okay, so Crimson did die to this guy. One thing that's nice is you can immediately just restart the battles at full HP, so it's not too big of a time loss if he does get beaten by any of these fighters in the castles, and it gets harder and harder as we go along. So this guy has like 500 HP. He takes Crimson out literally in 2 hits at this point, so that's pretty rough. But we got through him. That was castle number 5. So that's 5 down, 2 to go. Crimson's making really good progress here. The stables there essentially act as a fast travel. So you can use the horse stable to travel to any previously visited location, at least through a certain list. Yeah, his power level is almost 500. Just wait. We're gonna go even higher. Yeah, so let's see here. To get into the 6th castle, it's kind of like a big, sort of like fetch quest kind of thing. You have to like use money to get sake, you use that to get a spade, you use that to get some papers that allow you to enter a castle. It's just like a big fetch quest sequence that Crimson was just doing there to access castle number 6 here. Second to last guy. You can see Crimson is doing pretty good damage though. If he hits him with that flying knee attack, he's doing about 70 points of damage, so, you know, about 9 or 10 attacks and we get through that guy. And yeah, there's just 1 castle left here. So Crimson's PB is about 13 minutes. I think the record is around 11 and a half for this category. So making really good progress. The 7th castle, in order to enter it, we actually need to go behind the castle and do a bird call to distract the guard. So if Crimson dies to the guard, he has to come back to that same spot next to the castle there to distract the guard so he can enter and fight the final guardian of the castle here. So this is the 7th castle. After we beat this guy, we are going to have that password to be able to access the credits. So we will have time pretty shortly after this battle if Crimson's able to win it, and this is looking pretty good. He's almost got him. Nice. Alright, so he's going to put in the password and then we'll see the credits, and once we see the credits, that's going to be time. So here comes the password. And there's the credits. Alright, GG. So yeah, very cool game. 12:55. Crimson, congratulations. Great time. All right. Yeah, there you go. That was Tenkaichi Bushi, Keru Naguuru, the greatest warrior on earth, kick and punch. Honestly, extremely cool game. Yeah, it's a wild ride. We did a lot in 13 minutes, mostly Crimson. There's a lot more there if you ever want to dig into a obscure but extremely cool Famicom game. And yeah, thank you RGLtv for having us. Go Retrothon.